Um, It's interesting that INEC wants to extend this. It's not surprising considering that as at the end of last year, I believe there were 8 million uncollected PVCs around the country. And yes, some states have much lower collection rates than others. So it makes sense to extend. You might question why in particular states why not extend it across the country. It will give people more time definitely to pick up, to get their PVCs and to be able to participate on election days. So it's a positive development, but there might be questions around which states are allowed to kind of carry on with that process, and at what point do we actually put a stop to it and be clear on the PVC collection figures in different states.
All right, but what about, I would like you to share a thought or two about your about segments of the population that are also disenfranchised from voting in the process. On one hand, we have the youth corpers on one hand, and then we also have, it's a good thing we got the end of the strike yesterday. So basically, and people who are relocating from different spots as well. They've often talked about the fact that, yes, even if they have their PVCs, they might be in locations where they might not be eligible to vote.
That's definitely a challenge that exists with the way the system works, where you have to go to a particular polling unit to cast your vote. I think, and not just even in the last couple of months, but even in the last couple of years, people have moved and have struggled with being able to kind of transfer their registration or their polling unit from one place to another. That's definitely a challenge. But I think there's a limit to what INEC can do to address that, considering all the different things that they're having to deal with and prepare for in these elections.
Okay, but another issue that it still rings in the air is still the thoughts about, we've had reports about buying and selling of permanent voter cards. How do you think this affects the process?
Well, I think these are issues that we continue to deal with in this country. Definitely it affects the process. If people feel that they can, sell their PVCs, there's a lot of voter education, I believe, that's been done around the country. It's not certain how much impact that has. There's bound to be challenges around, people not being so invested in the process to know that you shouldn't sell this. You shouldn't. Your vote is really a power that you have to determine what happens with leadership of the country. So, I don't know how much INEC can really do to address that. Beyond kind of some of the work that's been going on around talking to voters and political parties about their responsibilities.
All right. So as someone who's been putting reports around the elections for a while now, what would you say is some of the big issues that are still confronting us ahead of these elections?
Personally, I think this election is going to be really very close contest. I think the issues haven't changed significantly over the years. People are still very concerned about what's going to happen in terms of the economy, how the different economic and fiscal challenges that Nigeria is will be addressed. People are very concerned about security, the different security issues that the country is facing in different parts of the country. How are those going to be addressed? And also corruption remains, a key thing. And you can see that in the discourse from the different political parties. You can see that in the discourse by the electorate and the kind of questions that are being asked of political actors.
All right. So you say it's going to be most likely a close one here. But you think there's a possibility we might get into a runoff?
It will be really difficult to say. I mean, there's certain conditions for a runoff. It's really that, the contest is so close, and potentially one candidate who has the majority of votes probably didn't get the minimum 25% in 2/3 of the state as is required. So those are the particular conditions for a runoff. There's also the potential, I guess, for reruns, and that's basically where you have certain polling units or wards, the elections being cancelled, either because of some challenges or incidents that may have happened there. So I think reruns are even maybe more likely in some places than the actual scenario of having a runoff.
Okay. But then let's come back to the campaign, because we are still in the campaign season here, and we're looking at that. But then we've had some utterances, coming up from there. We've also seen flashpoints of 1 or 2 of violence, even when it's state primaries being organized. What do you have to say about the attitude to election campaigns here in Nigeria?
I think all of your question, Kenneth, you mean from politicians or from the voting public?
Well, just how people are observing the election campaigns, the kind of messaging that has been going out from the campaigns.
Well, the messaging is going out, like I said. I think people are talking about these issues I already mentioned, whether it's the economy, whether it's security, whether it's corruption. And you can see different parties have focused on, I think, particular issues, whether it's corruption or whether it's talking about the economy, and try to kind of craft their message around that. There's also a lot of, as you might expect, a lot of talking about what other people may have done or should have done that they haven't done. So it's really saying, are these the candidates that you really want, to look at their track record and things like that. So we're seeing that from both sides of the political divide, as is to be expected. From the voting public, I think people are trying to ask questions as well that are really key to their own existence. Yes, a lot of sentiment around personalities, but I think the discourse also is also around how people really address issues like the economy and security, and in some instances, you know, the sense when you go out and talk to people is that it's not certain that either side really has clear answers, especially when it comes to security.
All right then, but in your view though, what areas do you think there will be flashpoints? You know, what states do you think there will be flashpoints to watch out for?
I think, you know, looking at, you know, the current security situation in the country, I think that, you know, flashpoints may be expected in several places, and it's really dependent on what happens on election day, how people conduct themselves, whether people perceive that there's a high level of interference with the process or with results. That would really determine, you know, how reactions may come in different regions, and how people perceive that INEC conducts itself or conducts the elections. So I won't pinpoint any particular state at the moment. I think you just think through states where there have been challenges with primaries, states where there's already security challenges being addressed. Those will be the states where, you know, I want to look out.